Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our second session in this SwiftALM webinar series. My name is Nishant, and I'll be your host for today. Today's session will be presented by Rajesh Rao. Rajesh, a solutions architect at Digité, has been with us for more than 8 years now, and his session will cover notifications, grouping of users and projects at group nodes, and various reports that you can generate using the SwiftALM tool. Before we get started, just a couple of pointers. If you have any questions during the webinar, please ask them using the questions box. We'll try and take them as they come, else we'll try and cover them at the end of the webinar. And we'll try and share a recording of this webinar with you at using an email with a link in it at the end of the day or sometime next week. Uh, that's it from me. So over to you, Rajesh.
Okay. Thanks, Nishant, and good afternoon, everyone. So, as the agenda being set by Nishant, we would be covering the notification plan to start off with. So, a quick way of doing it as we progress with the topics. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those questions, and I'll take them as it is. Okay. So we'll start off with the first topic, in which we are going to talk about how the notification framework within the product works. So if you see here, this is how we would get into the system. And once you are into the system, a common landing page that you will have, which will talk about your inbox, and then a set of projects. So if you see here, this is something what we have is a quick links that we say, which will help you to navigate into any one of these projects. Okay. Now, within this project, you would see the various menus. You would see that these menus are actually spanned over something called as the home, plan, execute menu, and within each of these menus, you have a set of modules or work items that are related to a project. Okay. Now, under the home menu, you would see there is a notification. Now, the notification as such in the product are at two levels. One is within a project for pertaining to the items which is related to the project. The second level of notification is present at a user level, okay, which is primarily driven by a user pattern of putting his notifications for his own tracking. Okay. To start off with, what we'll do is we'll first see the kind of notification which comes or how it is generated at a project level. Now, the interface for the notification, the first interface of the notification would be something of this sort, wherein you would see an icon out here to add a notification. When you would try adding a notification, it would give you an interface in which it would ask you the details of that notification. So you can give your details. So let me give a notification. So you can give a very meaningful notification. Say for example, you are part of multiple projects, so you can give this notification detail to the mail. Okay, so say for example, this is from the L&T project. So you would see that it is an L&T project. You can give a description of it. Now, when you would come to the below half, where you would have to select the notification members, you would see there are a couple of options out here. These options are nothing but various filtering mechanisms to arrive at a set of members whom you want to notify. Okay. So if you see here, there's a team member. If you have selected team members, then you have an option of filtering those users by either the role or something. What we have is a resource group. A resource group in the product is nothing but where you can logically create groups in the system and assign or associate users to that group. You can, so say for example, within the project you can create a group for the development team, a testing team kind of stuff, and those kind of groups can be used for further filtering. The second kind of thing is, again, as you were saying, that this is roles. So if you see here, the left pane is now started listing the roles out here, and then obviously the resource groups. So it will, if you have defined any resource group, it will list you that. Okay. Now, for the sake of representing, what I'm doing is I am selecting myself, and we will see how a mail when it is triggered from the system looks like. So if you see I have selected myself, then on the left pane you would also see there is an option of other recipients. Now this other recipients can be used to add email IDs of members who are not part of the project, but yet you want to inform them of the events or the triggers that happen. So these email IDs could be members from the different part of the organization, say from the delivery excellence team or the process team or the SAP team, or maybe even the customer. Okay, so the first thing is you would go ahead and save this notification. Okay, so you would go ahead and save this notification. So when you would have saved this notification, you would see that there is an entry that has got created here. Likewise, you can create n number of notifications for your project. Okay, and now each of these notifications you will notice is having a status of active and disabled. So by default the value is active, but at any point of time you do not want this notification event to be fired, you can obviously go and get it disabled. So henceforth the notifications out of these this plan will not get triggered. Okay. Now, if you go on to the second tab, which basically captures the various notification events, you would see here that there are a couple of, if you see the pattern, you would see that there is a subject and then there is a set of triggers. Now, the subject is nothing but an e-form. Now, in the product, there are already a set of predefined triggers given, but apart from that, if you are adding some custom forms into your project, those will automatically result in 4 default triggers. So say for example this internal releases is a custom e-form, or like this inventory transaction is a custom e-form, and for each of these custom e-forms you would see that there are 4 triggers which are by default created for each one of them. Okay. Now for the ones which are like factory ship, like if you see action items, now this is an action item e-form which is a factory shipped e-form, and hence you would see that the actions in this e-form or this subject is more than the default one. So similarly, if you see the same case with change request, similarly if you see the same case with defects. Okay. Now let us take an example. So we'll stick with the issues. Now if you see here, so issues is an e-form. To that you have a whole number of triggers that have been mentioned to that. Now on the right hand side, if you see, there is something called as this frequency. When is that you want this trigger to be generated? So say for example, I'll have a trigger selected as any issue which is added, edited or routed or deleted should shoot a notification. Now when should it do? It should do whether it is required or not required, whether daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly. So if when you see this frequency of daily, weekly, fortnightly and monthly, there the product has a notifications scheduler which runs at the end of the day. So if you have said it has that frequency as daily, then based upon the timing set for the notification scheduler, which is generally towards the end of the day, then what it does, it would run for all the projects where the notification plans are active, and then at the end of the day it will send you a consolidated list of all the triggers that were triggered from the various projects. And similarly, if it is weekly, then at the end of the week, fortnightly is at the end of 15 days, and monthly at the end of the month. Now then you would see there's something called as on event. On event is the moment it has occurred, it will fire a mail. So let us test this out. So what happens is we have selected for the issue. What I've done is for the issue I have set the trigger for added, edited, routed and deleted, and then I have set the event as on event, meaning the moment this an issue is getting added or modified, it should shoot a mail. So what I will do is I will go to the issues module, and in the issues module what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an issue. So say for example I'll go and add an issue. So let me say it is an demo issue which I'm trying to add, and in this demo issue I'll fill up the various parameters which are mandatory in nature. Okay, and I save it. Okay, now since I have now created this event, the trigger now is adding of it. So if you see here, I have now got a mail which primarily says that there's a change notification. This is the project name, is the project name comes out here, and the title is the name of the notification title that I gave. And if you see here, the various parameters of that are part of this template are captured. So these are predefined templates which capture the name, the trigger which resulted in this notification, the details, the name, and then a few parameters out of that. And then you obviously have a hyperlink here for you to directly connect into the system in case of you want more details. I think we have a question from the team. Let me just check this. Okay, so here is a question in which it says that if you are a project manager for 2-3 projects, so will it send a consolidated report in the mail or a separate mail for every project? So I'm going to show this example as well. Okay. Now what we have done is you have done it at a individual project level. Okay. Now what kind of notification you have set is basically at a project level. Now as I was saying, there is another kind of notification which is nothing but at a user level. Okay. Now if I have to go at a user level, then you go to home, and this is nothing but your home workspace. In this home workspace you will have the notification under the setup options. Now here under this setup notification, you can, as a user you can add a notification. Now here is what will happen. Now if you are part of multiple projects, so say for example I want a notification for adding issue added. Okay, and here is a filter of selecting your project, so you would be able to see, you will also be able to filter from your projects, and then you would see that a list of projects to which you are a team member. Now say you want to get notification if a defect or an issue is added in maybe multiple projects. So what I'll say is I want when an issue is added in my L&T project, I want if an issue is added maybe in the UST project, I want the mail if an issue is added into my Cognizant project. So if I say I can say obviously save this notification, and once you have saved this notification, you have basically selected the projects from which the trigger based on being selected will get triggered to you. So here if I now go back to the issue and the same event, for the same issues, if I select the trigger as an issue is added in editor, now based on the frequency that I set, so if I set the frequency as daily, as I was saying, at the end of the day the notification scheduler runs, and if I have selected it for the project, the notification plan that I have set at a user level, if I have set it daily, then it will send me one consolidated mail. And similarly, if it is at a weekly level, it will send me one consolidated weekly mail for all these notifications. Now if I say it on event, then for either of the projects which I have selected as part of this notification, the moment it happens for these 3 notifications, I'll get a separate email informing that that trigger has happened. Right. So likewise, what you will be able to do that what we will be able to do is, say for example you are a project manager, team lead, or a part of a project team member, you can set up your own notifications as well. Okay, so you will be able to get that information, you will get that consolidated thing of what are the various events that has occurred because of that. Okay, now under a notification, now there are obviously ways how we want to do that. Now if you see here, obviously that when you're defining a notification, you want to logically group that. So say here, for example, I'm saying that this notification is related to issues, or this notification is related to risk. If you segregate them, then it becomes very easy for you to logically comprehend that the notification was triggered because of that, because immediately as part of your notification mail that comes up from the subject itself, you will be able to determine that this notification was for what. It was for issue ad, or was it for risk, or was it for your defects added. What was the notification? Okay. Now at a user level, there is also one very interesting notification. Now let me show you that. This is called as the inbox notification. Now in this inbox notification, you will see that there are two notifications here. An item gets assigned to me. Now this is a very interesting notification, because across projects, there might be various work items that might be assigned to you. You might be assigned a task, you might be assigned a defect to be worked upon, you might be assigned a change request to be worked upon, you might be assigned an incident to be worked upon. Now whenever something is assigned to you, that gets reflected in your inbox. So the moment that comes in your inbox, and if I have set this notification saying that this item gets assigned to me and on event, and obviously for which projects, obviously because I am talking now, the discussion is in the context of projects. So whenever an item is getting assigned to me from any of these projects which I have selected under the notification projects, I'll get a mail. So what in other words, what is meaning is you are getting informed about those activities which have been assigned to you without being able without logging into the system, because now your inbox is in a sort integrated with your mailing system. So whether it is an Outlook or a Gmail or a Hotmail, so it gets integrated with that. Okay, so this inbox thing is a very interesting one, and it gets used very extensively by our customers. So this was on the notification part of it. Let me take a pause. If there are any questions, I would like to take them. Okay, fair enough. So let me move to the next topic. In between, if you get any questions, please feel free to post them. Now we'll get to the next important thing of reports. Now within a project, so within a project, the reports, the design of these reports that we have is all at a project level and at an organization level. Now there are also certain reports at a user level, but predominantly the reports which are at a project level and organization level are used. Only the context, whether it is being used at a user level or a project level or a organization level, only changes, but the reports prima facie are similar in nature. So what we'll do is we will get into a couple of projects and have a look at some of these important reports that get generated from the system. Now, if you see, the reports part come under the monitor section of the project, because it is part of the monitoring and control knowledge area. Okay, so under this reports, you will see there are set of sections of reports that are available. So you would see there are reports related to earned value, there are reports related to SLA, there are reports available to traceability, there are reports available to resource, timesheet, and some miscellaneous reports as well. Okay. Now, what we'll do is in this session, what we'll try to cover is some of these very important, interesting reports that we have, so that it gives you one bird's eye view of the length and breadth of the reports that are present. Okay, so we'll try to touch base upon each the various flavors that we have. Okay. Now, what I've done is I have for the ease of stuff, what I've done is I have also prepared a kind of document which we can obviously share, if you like, with the team out here, wherein some of these reports with some basic content of what this report does. Okay, so say for example, so let us initially talk about some of these project level reports. Now, the first project level timesheet is on the list we have is the project level timesheet routing status report. Now, in this timesheet status report, let me generate the data for you so that you are able to see how this data is coming out. So what we have is I have data for the period of okay, so you have given a time period of say 2013, or let me to 2014, and then what we have is something called as a resource filter. Now this resource filter is nothing but if you want to actually if you want to select couple of resources on which you want to highlight, because if you have not done that, then it is going to list all the resources of your project and it is going to bring the data for them. By ways of this custom project list, what you're trying to do is you are listing a set of users on which you want to specifically focus upon. So that is the whole intent of having a custom filter. Okay, so let me say go, and hopefully I will get some data. So if you see the pattern of it, what it says, it mentions the team member's name. The start date is the start date of the week for the timesheet, and the status is the status of the timesheet, and then the total hours. Now on the timesheet you will see that there are a couple of status, something called as not filled kind of thing. So let me quickly touch base upon those status as well. Not filled is a status in which you have not done anything on the timesheet. So basically you have not made any entry into the timesheet. Okay. The next status that comes is saved. Saved comes when you have made some modification in the timesheet and you have clicked on the save button. It could also be that you have, because if you see in the timesheet cells, by default the value that comes is 0, but if you have even tried to remove that 0 and saved it, and which is nothing, in other words called a dirty save, that is also a saved status, because you have you have saved the data for the timesheet. Then once have you saved the timesheet, the next process is of routing the timesheet. So when you click on the route, the timesheet gets routed to the next state. So if you have if you have on timesheet approval workflow process, then the status would come as routed. If you do not have any approval process, then timesheet gets closed, like this one. If you see, the timesheet is closed, which basically means the timesheet is approved. Okay, and this you will get this status. Now in case there is a workflow and the timesheet gets rejected, then you will get the status as rejected. Okay, and on a rejected timesheet, if you make modification and save it, then you will get something called as corrected. So these are the couple of various statuses that you would have on a timesheet. So on a whole, what it tells is it tells you the entire routing status of the resources who have actually filled the timesheet, or even who have even not filled the timesheet. So this is what this report does. Okay. Now we'll move on to the next one. This one is called as a timesheet exceptions report. Okay. Now in this timesheet exceptions report, what happens is you would obviously select a start date and end date, and then what it tells is those are lists out the set of resources who have not filled based on not completed the filling based on the estimated hours. So if the estimated hours is 40 hours per week, you're expected to fill 40 hours per week, and you have not logged the required effort, then your name is a candidate in this exception report. So here you could see there is some data also available for that. We have shown that data for you. Okay. Then the next report is basically your timesheet billable summary report. Now this is useful if in the timesheet when you're filling the timesheet. So let me show you how what I'm talking about. When, if say for example, when you're filling a timesheet in the system, you would see that there is an option of filling the billable hours as well. So I hope I will have some data point. Okay, now if you see in each of the cells, when you're filling the timesheet, you will see that there is a billable option here. So you have actual effort which you fill, and then there's a billable effort. So primarily trying to say is that you would have filled an effort of say 10 hours. Out of that 10 hours, around, if you want to say either all the 10 is billable or less than the 10 is billable, so you want to fill that effort here. This is to segregate that out of the actual hours filled, what is the billed hours that you want to consider. Okay, now the report that we were just talking about considers this billable effort and accounts the billable effort that is filled into this. So if you see the both these reports, one is just a summary, the other is a detail. So if you get into any of these, it will tell you an example. So let me see the data set for which I can generate and give it to you. So say for example, let me again generate it for a period. And let me go say somewhere in till April, and then I'll say go. So what it will do is it will tell me that for that task requirement do that the resource, what is the timesheet effort that they have filled, and out of the timesheet effort, what is the billable effort. Now it will also do the report. Basically when this is actual effort, the report only takes into consideration the approved effort. So that is an important factor that needs to be considered. Now again, if you see in each of these filters, you have something called as resource filters, which is nothing but filtering your resources. Okay, I think we have a question, so let us look at that question. Okay, is it possible to export this report in Excel format? The user is allocated less than 100% to a project, then will this report calculate the filled hours as per the allocation? Okay, so let us take this both these questions. Okay, I hope the export was for the routing status. Which report are you looking at? It is for so currently these reports that you're talking about, these are BERT reports, and we do not have an export of these reports. But obviously if once the data is generated, you can just take a copy and paste it into our interface. But yes, we do not have an interface so for generating the data. So we do not have an exact export into an Excel kind of stuff. Now there was another question in which I think this was related to the exceptions report. In this exception report, if you see, it is estimated 40 hours. Now this estimated 40 hours is flat. It is not based on your allocation. So it is assumed that on an average a resource is supposed to fill 40 hours of work. So that is where this 40 hours is coming for. It is not coming based upon your allocations. So if you're looking to have a kind of report which would bring data from based upon the allocations, then we would have to depend on our next reporting framework which we have, which we call as an ECR framework, from which we can actually in which we will be able to develop that report that you are asking for, wherein we can consider the allocation effort, and vis-a-vis the allocation effort we can see how much is the logged effort. So that can be done. Okay, now in this obviously there is again another set of timesheet reports which we call as the unapproved timesheet reports. If somebody has not approved the timesheet, so this is again an timesheet. So if you look into that, let us look at the data element for that to give you Okay, so I do not have any timesheet unapproved. So what it will give you is for each of these timesheet reports, it will tell you what the user who has filled the timesheet, on whose stage or what the stage name in which it is currently there and with whom it is currently present. So this is going to talk about that. Okay, so the unapproved timesheet obviously proves you handy in terms of providing or letting the user know when this timesheet or when this or the set of timesheets which are actually not approved by the user, okay, or the approver. Okay, then next is your timesheet export. Now this timesheet export is nothing but basically a data dump of our timesheet table. So if you see, when you would try to use this timesheet export, this has an export Excel output facility in which the entire dump of with all the attributes of the timesheet for the respective task comes out. So this timesheet report, in other words, is nothing but a CSV dump. Now another interesting report in the list of the timesheet reports is the timesheet report itself. Okay, now in this timesheet reports, if you see, there is a set of team members whom you want to look for, and then there are a lot of combinations out there, project wise, resource wise, activity code wise, and then there are a lot of combinations out here. Now here in this, let me generate a data and show it to you. So say for example, let me generate for the entire lot, and then let me see, I'll just change these states only. Okay, and if I say generate, now you would see the pattern of it. You would see there is a project wise, and within this project it tells you the various resources was worked upon it and the activity code on which they have filled the timesheet. So if you see here, all these this option is present where you can actually where you can see that what is a logged effort kind of stuff, and what is for each of these resources, what are the activity codes. Now in this combination there's an interesting combination out here. So let me again change the date. Here is this resource wise, project wise, activity wise. The moment you would select this, if you see here from the activity, we do not understand what is the what is that item on which they have worked basically, right? So whether is it a task or is it a defect or is it a change request. So there's an option which comes for resource wise, project wise, activity wise. In this you will have an option called show item code. Now when you would have done this, what happens is obviously it lists you the data based upon these resources, and when each of these resources we would expand, so it tells you the project in which they have worked. Now you would see, because I have selected the project code, it tells me the task on which I have filled effort. So if you see here, this the resource Adam Paul has actually filled effort on development do, development rework kind of activity. And if I look at the other resource, Bhavesh, he has worked on similar kind of activities which is different in nature. Okay, now this report can be exported to Excel, so that functionality of exporting into Excel is available with this report. So it also gives you this also fetches you the global item. So if some of the resources of the project have actually filled a global timesheet for this period, it gives you that data as well. Okay, now the last of the lot in this timesheet reports is basically your monthly timesheet report. Now in this monthly timesheet report, if you see, it is nothing but a day-wise breakup for the data that is being generated by all the team members. So if I'm going this, let me select a period which is a bit old. Let me select it to 2013 and say generate. Okay, so if you see here, it gives you a day-wise breakup of each day where each of these resources have filled. So the resources have filled 7 hours on 1st of July, 2nd July. Now what it obviously does not do is that this resource has filled on 1st July on which task. So that combination doesn't come out here. So what it tells is on that day what is the total aggregate effort that is filled by these resources. Okay, so that is an that is where it is that is where we call it a monthly timesheet report, because this data it gives you the breakup of the timesheet that is generated by each of these resources. Okay. Now, post the timesheet report, another flavor of reports that you have is your resource loading report, or whether in this or the resource reports. In this resource reports, one of the important ones is your resource loading report, because it tells you how your resources are loaded over a period of time. So if I go to here again, you will have the same nature of this resource filter, by ways of which you can filter out your team members if you want. And then let me select a period. Let me select a period for um, for the report. Okay, and then you have this option whether you want it for all the items. So if you see here, it gives you an option of all, tasks and non-tasks. So tasks are your planned activities which come out of your WBS, and non-tasks are all other activities other than your planned WBS. So say for example, issues, if you're filling timesheet on issues, that will be a non-task. If you're filling timesheet on incident, that will be a non-task. And then you have this timesheet status, which says logged and approved. Logged is nothing but the saved effort, and approved is nothing but the timesheet which was submitted and then was approved by the approver. Okay, and then you have these options of including in timesheets and in global timesheets, and show the billable effort as well. So when you would generate this report, so you would see that you have this option of generating it in a weekly or monthly or yearly basis. So the first part of the report is more of a graph view, which gives you those parameters of what is the allocated effort for the week, what is the assigned effort for the week, what is the actuals, and then there is a red dot which talks about the capacity of the user, used capacity of the user for that week. Okay, now the same information is actually represented in this grid. Okay, so let us try to understand and find meaning out of this report. So we'll take an example. So we'll take the case of this Daniel. If you see, in case of Daniel, you would see that I'm highlighting this row. We'll talk about this row. Okay, so if you see for Daniel, for the week of 29th of April, what you basically have is an assigned effort which is of 19.2. Okay, now before that you would see that this allocated effort. Now uh, let us first understand these attributes of allocated efforts, assigned efforts, actual efforts, kind of stuff. Okay, now how the allocated efforts for the week for the user Daniel is calculated is that for that week it tries to figure out what is the allocation of the user. If the user is having an allocation for that week, that gets accounted, and then that gets multiplied into something called as a percentage allocation of the user. So if the user is allocated for the week of 29th April, and then say for example you have 40% allocation, sorry, you have 100% allocation, and per day you are supposed to work 8 hours a week. So then what happens is basically your 5 day, because for that week you will have 5 working days, and since you have 100% allocated, and that gets multiplied with your uh, per hours per day, the number of hours per day that you are supposed to work, which is again driven by an application preference in the preference module. You can define what is the number of hours you will be working on. So that gets multiplied, and that is how you will get the allocated effort. Now you then have something called as the um, assigned effort. Now if you see in this case of this assigned effort, now assigned effort comes out in the case that uh, that when you are assigning him some kind of work, so whether you're planning tasks for that resource, and in those tasks you would have given him certain assigned him certain tasks. So when you assign a work to a user, the effort that is being assigned to that user actually gets considered as the assigned effort. So that is the total assigned effort for the week. And then you have the actual efforts. Now with this actual effort, you would see that the user was assigned 19 hours of work, but actually the user filled around 40 hours of actual effort. And that is where, if you see this the color is in red in color, which primarily shows that the resource was overloaded, or the resource was given a work of around 19 hours or 20 hours of work, but he has filled around 40 hours of effort into this. So it gives you an indicator that even though the load was less, but the resource ended up consuming almost 40 hours of work. So gives you an indication of that. And now when it totals up, you will see that there's a total column out here, and it's nothing but the total of the various allocated and the assigned hours and the actual hours for that week. So this is what we are talking about, a resource loading report, which talks about the loading of the resource. A similar report of this nature is at an org level, which we call as a utilization of the resource. So in that utilization, you basically take into count the availability of the resource vis-a-vis the actual efforts that the resource has filled, and that is how you would arrive whether the resource has been properly utilized or not. Okay. Then you have this report, which is nothing but your non-labor resource allocation, which basically captures your various non-labor parts. Which, when I mean non-labor parts, these are basically the assets that are part of your project. So say for example, the assets that are part of your projects could be your hardware, could be your software, and all those attributes for that are required or that are used in the project are basically your non-labor resources. So let me give you an example of that. So if you see here, here I have captured a screenshot of a report in which it lists down whatever whatever non-labor resources which are there for the project are being captured. If you see here, the software or the hardware part, and then once you have captured that in your report, you would see that if you generate this report, which is your non-labor resource report, you will be able to see that it comes out in a report of this format, which says that, okay, what is the asset and what is the start date and end date of that asset. Okay. The other report in the resource list is the team member allocation report. In this team member allocation report, okay, so there seems to be issue in this server. Let me give you an output of the format. So if you see here, the team member allocation report is nothing but a detail of what are the allocations for the user in that project. So the report would look something like this, in where it will have the team member name, it will have the start date and end date, it will have the percentage allocation of the resource into that project, what is the role that has been given, and then you have something called as booking type. This booking type is, you would see that we also have an option of proposed and committed. So the proposed booking type is nothing but a soft booking that we say, which actually goes through an approval cycle. Only then you get committed into a project. Okay. Okay. Now we'll go back to the report section. We will touch base upon some other important report. Now in this other important reports that we have is the other reports that you have, and in this other report that you would see is one of the important report is this project progress report. Now this project progress report is of high importance, because what it does is it gives you the entire WBS that you would have generated for your project in terms of the percentage completion, and then what it also talks about is the schedule variance and effort variance at each task level. Now you can also generate this report for your work packages. So when you're generating this report for your work packages, you can actually choose the instances for which you want to see this, and then then if you say that okay, you want to also include the resources who are working on, then it generates a very detailed report. So if you see here, this there is a task which is requirement due. Now this task is being worked upon by Gaurav. Okay, and then for each of these, what was the, whether it is percentage complete is 100%. If you are saying 100%, which family say it is completed, then what is the start date, end date of what was the effort vis-a-vis this effort, what was the baseline effort, and what was the actual effort, and against that what is the schedule variance and effort variance for that. Now again, this report is it gets exported, and you can actually take it into an Excel interface and review it. So it's a very important report which comes out handy, and you can apply those filters. You can apply which instances you want, which work package instances you want to see. If instead of the work package instances, if you want to look at the main WBS, then you can select this option, and this entire WBS option gets selected. Okay. Now, apart from the other reports, you will see that this effort variance report for closed items, schedule variance, and then out of this there is an important one, which is this package phase release level metrics. Now, if you are actually using this release level, then it becomes very important, and it gives you information. Let me show you an example for that. Okay, so say for example here what we have is, in this report, if you see that there's various options, package metrics, release metrics, practice metrics, package phase metrics, and all these combinations. So if you are using work packages kind of mechanism, you will be able to see the work package. So I'm selecting the work package as I want to see the data for the work packages, and you would see that the various metrics that that are shipped out of the box. These are all these metrics which are shipped out of the box, and for each of these iterations that are available, what is the metric? So if you see here, actual effort for iteration 1, iteration 4, kind of stuff, then appraisal cost, then baseline effort. Now all these metrics which are basically defined out of the box gives you a detailed view in terms of metrics and what is happening at each iteration level. Okay, now obviously this is there. Now if you are also having a practice level, phase level, all this combination, if it is present in your project, then you will be able to generate this data as well. Okay, now this was one set of reports that we have as part of the miscellaneous reports. Okay, now another important report that we have as part of the traceability reports is something called as a traceability map report. Now this traceability map report is an important factor, because what it does is, in other words, establishes an requirement traceability matrix. Okay, so so what you can do is you can select a map. Now if you see here, we are putting a map such as business requirement, then you have requirement, test cases, and defect, and then you can say up to what level you want to have this traceability map. And then if you say go, then wherever there is a traceability set between these line items, it is going to display you that. So if you see this change request is linked with the user requirement, with the test unit, and then eventually with the defect. So let us see how a traceability map in the first place is created so that it can be consumed by this report. So under setup, you will see there is something called as traceability maps. Now obviously from your organization perspective, you can define those traceability maps as an org level, which can be inherited at a project level as well. But you at a project level also, the project manager has a free access to define that. So you can define a traceability map. You can name those traceability map to the levels. So the levels that you can choose, let's say from CR to defect to say test case. So this is a map that you're trying to talk about. So you can say that, okay, my first level will be change request, my second level will be a defect, and then you can go on to add another row which will basically say that okay, the third level is my test cases or my test units is formed. So you can save this traceability. You would see that this traceability is added. Now when you would go to the reports, and in this reports, if you see, if you go back to the traceability map report, we would see that the traceability map that you have identified comes out. Okay, so so this can be generated, and you will be able to see this report that we were talking about, and then the data can be generated up to the levels that you want, and that can be viewed here. Okay, now on similar lines, what you have is a set of something called as a traceability map exception report. So it's just the reverse of it. What happens is, if in this same map, if you want to see that is there any exceptions which are missed out, okay, so it will going to list down all those things. So if you see here, there are defects. So if you see here in this chain, the defect was the last part. So the first you had this change request followed by requirement, then test cases and defect. So in this, the last was defect. These are the set of defects which does not have any upward traceability with the test cases. So there is no upward traceability. So this exception report is very handy, which gives you a complete overview of where the linkages are missed. So in case there are items in which the linkages are missed, you can actually go and add them. Okay. Okay, so this is the traceability map report that we wanted to show. Okay. Okay. Now there is also a base in the task reports. You will see that there is something called as a baseline compare report. Now this baseline compare report is basically used if you want. So there are no baselines available in this project, but if you would have a baseline, then what it does is it lists you for each of these tasks what is the baseline start date and end date for the entire WBS task. So let me see if you have data available for it. I'm sorry, it is not handy, but I can maybe give you the details later. Okay. Then what we have is a test management kind of report. So if you see here, what you basically have is a set of test cases, test scripts, and test events. So if you see here, we have a manual testing module available, which gives you a list of test cases. Test scripts are nothing but logical group of test units, and then you have test events, which is nothing but your iterations in which you would execute. So you have a report surrounding that, which gives you that how that entire execution for your event is running. Okay, and here in this execution details, you want to see whether you want to see all, you want to see the only the non-executed ones, or all of them. So if you say okay, what it does is it again generates a BERT report. I'm sorry, there seems to be some issue on the server. It is giving an error, but it gives you a nice little notification or the nice little report on which it gives you the entire details for it. Okay, so you would be able to generate that. So let me check if that is available quickly on another server. Let me check that. Okay, so no, I think we will not have that project. Okay. So I think we okay, maybe I'll generate and give it to you. Okay. Then if we move on, then what you have is reports which are also at an organization level. Now this reports at an organization level also are very similar to the reports which are at a project level. So under organization workspace, you will have the report section. You will have all these reports available with you. The only difference between any of these reports is the filter that you would have. So here, if I have to look at this timesheet report, I'll just take an example. If I have to look at this timesheet report, now if you remember the interface between the level with the interface that was at a project level to that what was at a org level, you will see that there is a set of filters. There is a project filter and there is a resource filter. So if you see that these filters are only help you to do more slicing and dicing of data, in which these filters based upon the hierarchy that you are associated will pick up those projects for the filter, and then you would be able to generate the same report for those set of projects. So either you can use the hierarchy or you can use the custom filter option, in which you can decide what are the projects that you are looking at, and then you can add those projects into that list, and then you can generate it. So here if you see, I'm just searching through the project. So I will just search through a couple of projects out here, and I can add those projects into that list, and then I can generate the data for it. So the only difference between the org and the project reports is that the presence of this project filters at this level. Okay. Now, out on this org report, what an important report that I was talking about is this presence of this resource utilization report. Okay. Now, in this resource utilization report is so let us take an example of that resource utilization report, and let me generate it for older period. Okay, and let me say week. Okay, now if you see here, the parameters that comes out here are the important ones. One is it says it is an AV, which is nothing but the available effort. Now the next is an assigned effort. The post that is an actual effort. Then it is the plant capacity utilization, and then there is actual capacity utilization. So let me give you a screenshot of the same to give you an idea of it. Just a sec. Okay. Uh, so So here, how does the available hours get computed here? Now the available hours gets computed based on the resource calendar. Now each of this resource, what you will have is a resource calendar which is getting associated with team members. So if in the resource calendar you have said that you, I mean by default, the resource calendar is used to add exceptions, saying that if you are not working. So if there is not an exception for a day, you are considered for that day, and then based upon the number of hours that you're supposed to work for a day, your availability at an organization level is computed. Okay, so since you are supposed to work on that day, and the availability of you at the number of hours that you are supposed to work here is 40. So that is how the availability comes out, which comes to be 40, because number of hours say per day you are saying as 8, and number of days in a week it is around 5, so the availability comes at around 40. Here the percentage allocation at an individual project level is not considered, but rather the availability based on the resource calendar is considered. Now then you have something called as assigned effort. Now assigned effort comes when for each of these projects you are actually generating the data. So we will try generating this data for the period. Okay, and let's see, it generates data. Okay, so that is the data that we are getting generated. So then what we'll have is the actual effort that we would have filled for this period. So when you are trying to generate the actual effort for each of these resources, then the total actual effort comes out, and then you have something called as PCU. PCU is nothing but the plant capacity utilization that you would see. Now this plant capacity utilization is based on the availability and what was based on the availability and the assigned effort, what was the capacity that was supposed to be used. And based after that, you have something called as capacity utilization, in which the actual effort parameter is considered in order to compute the capacity utilization. Now here also, like in the resource loading report, if the capacity utilization is coming more than the plant capacity utilization, then it will show you in red saying that this user is being overutilized. Okay, so the same pattern of showing it in red is also maintained in the resource utilization reports as well. Okay, so that covers more of it. Now also the organization reports, you would have seen that there are few reports related to the resource plans, which my colleague Shabuddin has covered yesterday. So you would have seen that how the vis-a-vis the resource plan and the actuals, how the data comes out in case of the resource plan reports. Okay. Okay, so that is more about how the reports, out of the box reports, are generated. Now, apart from these out of the box reports, there, as I was saying, that there is a separate add-on module of ECR framework, which is an add-on module, doesn't come as part of the OOB framework, but it gives a lot of flexibility in terms of generating a lot of these custom reports that we call, and you will be able to do that. So let me give you an example of one such custom report. So if you see here, what we have is, for one of the customers, what we have done is we have generated what we call as the status report. Now this is a status report that the team has. Now if you see in the status report, we have defined certain parameters. Then what we have done is define the various estimates and actuals for this project. Now this is completely based upon a template that was given to the given by the customer, and then was developed using the reporting framework, which is called as an ECR framework, that I was defining as an add-on module. So if you see here, we were able to replicate the template using the ECR framework, because the information for us was always there with it. So if you see, there are some samples of reports out here, in which all the scorecards and the kind of work that was done, all of these are captured. So if you see here, there's a status report on the metric, then there is a iteration-wise report, then there's a defect analysis. So a lot of these things which we can do actually using the custom reporting framework. Okay, so the intent of it was to just to give you the path that the custom reporting framework has in terms of meeting a lot of these the reports that the customer has on their own. Okay, so that covers the report section of it. So at this point of time, if you have any questions, or you want me to talk about any report again, do let me know. We can touch base on that report again. Okay. Then the last part of the today's session is basically talking about grouping of projects and grouping of resources. Okay. Now if you see here, when you mean grouping of resources and grouping of users, this is primarily for reports and dashboards, where you want to logically group projects and users for generating an output. So the output, once it is grouped, okay, I just have a question, I think. would we be discussing basics of ECR? No, we would not be discussing the basics of ECR. The ECR discussion would be a very separate thing. So if you think you would need some inputs of how ECR and how the capabilities of ECRs are, basics of ECR, please let us know. We can have a separate session on ECR, because that will take us for that we will have to do a bit of deep dive into how the ECR framework works. Okay, so we would not be covering as part of this session, but definitely if you are interested, do let us know. We can cover that. We can have a separate session which will talk about the capabilities of the ECR and how that can be used in for configuring such reports. Okay. The other part that we were talking about earlier was how the projects and users can be grouped together. Now, the very concept of grouping projects and resources in the system is for generating various reports and dashboards. Now, my colleagues would be covering those dashboards parameters in details, but you would see that you would have a lot of these parameters, you would have a lot of these dashboards in which you would be able to do a lot of this filtering at a project level. So if you see here, one of the important settings of any of these dashboard components is what you have is this filters. Now this filter, if you see, is nothing but a grouping of your projects. Okay, now the concept of filters in the product is just to meet your objective of how you can bring together projects so that you can have a lot of reporting and dashboarding out of it. So if you see, we use the grouping of projects here. Now how do we actually use these reports? Now in order to use group projects and in order to group the projects and users, what you basically have is something called as an hierarchy. Now hierarchy is nothing but basically your organizational structure, which you can model it into Digité using a tree-like structure in which the various nodes designate the various portfolios or the various views or the various divisions or departments within your organization, and that is how it forms. So say for example, here I'll give you an example of a unit-based hierarchy. So if you see in a unit-based hierarchy, you have a manufacturing, you have the Digité, which is at the root, then you have a manufacturing part, and then within that you have manufacturing US, manufacturing Europe kind of stuff. Now similarly, you can also define a hierarchy based on location. Okay, so if you see here, this is based on location. So if you see that the product gives you a flexibility of defining your own hierarchy. Now the hierarchy, these hierarchies that we call are having virtual entities. Now California, USA are not physical objects but virtual entities in which you can group or you can associate the projects. Okay, now how does the association happen? Now in any project, if you go, whenever you would invoke any of these projects, you would see that there is something, a tab available on the profile page which talks about organization relationship. Now if you see here, whatever relationships we have defined is coming out here, and now you can actually group the projects based upon the thing. So same project can be actually grouped unit wise or location wise as well. So if you see here, we are seeing two hierarchies, one was unit based and one was location based, but the same project, if you see, is actually mapped to different hierarchies and to different nodes. So on the location base, it is mapped to Australia, and the unit based, it is mapped to manufacturing APAC. Now this is at a individual project level. Now if you go at a organization workspace level, you will have an option of looking all of them at one shot. So under the organization workspace, you have the repositories, and under the repositories you have this reports repository. Now in this reports repository, you would see that there is a project organization relationship. Now if you click on that, what it will do is it will list all the projects that you have so far in the system, and then the various hierarchies that you would have defined will start getting listed here. So if you see here the projects which have been marked with, so if you see the project custom app development is mapped to New York and manufacturing US. So based upon the reporting need, you can use the hierarchy to actually group the projects together and then use that group of projects for reporting. Okay. Now, similar to the grouping of projects, you can also do the grouping of users. Now, if you see here, there are two kinds of, I mean, when you talk to users, there are basically two kinds of resources. One is a user who is part of a project, then he becomes a team member, and then there is another set of user who is directly in the entire resource pool, his entire organization resource pool, who has been basically associated into projects. Okay. Now if you want to understand, suppose if you want to understand how your resources are doing in terms of their locations or where they are done. So say for example the HR has a hierarchy which I was saying was representing, that the HR might be having a hierarchy which calls as a location wise hierarchy, right? Because it wants to find out that which all resources are based on which all locations, and based on that it wants to do the reporting on it. So if you see here, this is a location wise, so you would have various locations, and you would have different locations in which say your resources are associated with. Now in terms of grouping of the resources, if you saw that when we were trying to tag a project, we went into a individual project, mapped that project to an hierarchy. Similarly, to any of these projects or as any of these resources as well, we will have a similar interface which is called as a reporting assignment. In this reporting assignment, you would see that all the relationships that are present here are available here, and the resources can again be mapped based on the location. So say for example the resource on the location belongs to say Europe in one case, on one hierarchy belongs to Australia, maybe because you would have uh, uh, you want to define based on their base location or customer location kind of stuff. So once you would have mapped this, then you would be able to also use these resources in the filter to group it. Okay. Now I'm just not saving the data. Now since this was at an individual level, you would also see that you can also map the resources in bulk using this user organization relationship, in which it will list you all the resources that are present available, and then the various relationship or various hierarchies that are present in which you can map. So if you see there's a department wise hierarchy, there's a geographic wise hierarchy. Okay. So you can even look for resources and then map those resources accordingly. Once you have mapped these resources, you will be able to use this grouping of resources into what we call as project filters and resource filters, and then eventually use this data for your dashboards and reports. So that is how logically the grouping of resources and projects happen in the product. Okay, so so that was more about the topics that I wanted to cover today. If you have any questions on any one of the three topics that we covered today, please let me know. We can wait for a couple of minutes for the questions to come in, and then we can take them up accordingly. Okay. So now the floor is open for the questions.
Okay, Rajesh, looks like we don't have any more questions today. So, folks, we hope you enjoyed the session and found it useful. Do let us know. I mean, we can take questions offline as well. We will also send a recording of this webinar to you in due time. Uh, we have the next session scheduled for this Friday, where we'll cover our task planner, Digité Start, along with how you would go about managing docs, like the PMP doc, engineering docs on a tool. And as Rajesh mentioned, we'll also cover dashboards in depth on Friday. So hope you could join us for that session as well. So that's it from us today. Rajesh, thank you so much. And thanks for joining us today. Yeah.
Thanks, Nishant. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.